Hi, this video is going to talk to you about different types of boundaries and what will take place at each type of boundary. So we already know that the Earth's crust is broken into separate pieces, and we call those pieces the tectonic plates. The map below is a picture showing you the different plates that make up our crust. When two plates meet, the edge of where two plates meet is called a boundary. And there are different types of boundaries, and in the video I'm going to explain to you each type of boundary and what would take place at each. So let's first start by talking about a convergent boundary. Convergent boundary means that the two plates are going to move together or towards each other. That's why they call it convergent, because they converge or they come together. So our first scenario is if we have an oceanic plate and a continental plate. So the way I'm going to show that is by using blue to represent oceanic plate, and then I'm going to use green to represent a continental plate. So I'm just drawing the line to represent the plate. So here I have the two plates. They are moving towards each other, so I'm going to draw two arrows showing that they're moving towards each other. And over time, as they push towards each other, what will happen is that the oceanic plate will actually go under the continental plate. And if you remember from your reading, this is called subduction. It is subducting under. The reason that it subducts is because oceanic crust is more dense than continental crust. And if you remember way back to when we were talking about different types of crust, you will remember that it's made up of basaltic-like rocks, which means that it is more dense, so it will go under the continental crust. And you can see from the diagram here below, that is what's taking place. The oceanic crust subducts under the continental crust. So that is our first scenario. Our next scenario at a convergent plate is when we have two types of continental crust. So I'm going to draw two green lines showing continental crust. And I'm going to add my red arrows because we're still a convergent boundary. So our plates are still moving towards each other. Over long periods of time, as this is happening, both of these types of crusts are pretty much the same densities because they're both continental. So over time, these crusts are going to push towards each other, and eventually mountain range is going to form. And if this were 3D, this mountain range would come towards you and go back into the screen. So that is how a mountain is formed. And if you can look at the picture down here below, you see two types of crust pushing, and they end up pushing up and a mountain range forms. So that's what takes place at a convergent boundary when you have two continental plates. And then our third scenario at a convergent boundary is when we have two oceanic crusts. So we're going to draw two lines, and it is still convergent, so they're coming towards each other. And in this case, since we have two oceanic, what will end up happening is whichever one is more dense, they're going to be similar in densities, but whichever one is more dense will end up subducting under the other. And a trench will start to form here, a deep ocean trench, like a big hole in the crust. And as this is going down, this material in this crust will be melted and recycled, turn into magma, and going through the rock cycle like we've learned about. So this usually forms a deep ocean trench. Okay, let's move on and talk about divergent boundaries. At a divergent boundary, this is when tectonic plates move away from each other. They're moving apart. So in most cases, this happens between two types of oceanic crust. So I'm going to draw two blue lines here. And when this takes place, we end up they're moving away from each other. Magma and molten material, which is below here, it starts to form because there's less pressure of these two plates pushing. So magma will form down here. And since these plates are moving away from each other, this magma has all this extra room and it is less dense than rock. So what will happen is it will come in and it will start filling in this area. And over time it will fill in and make new crust. And this is what forms our mid-ocean ridge. Okay, so that's how a mid-ocean ridge forms, is when we have magma forming underneath this divergent boundary, and it comes and it fills in and it creates new rock and new crust, and it builds up until a mid-ocean ridge forms. This can happen occasionally on land when we have two types of continental crust that are moving away from each other. When it does this, a rift valley forms. So we're talking about divergent, they're moving away from each other. So this hole right here is called a rift valley. And there is one of these on land in Iceland. There's a video that we will probably watch from our textbook that talks about this rift valley taking place in Iceland, where the two types of continental crust are moving away from each other. Okay, so let's talk about our last type of plate boundary, and that is a transform boundary. A transform boundary, the plates are just moving past each other. So there's no new crust being formed or subducted, being destroyed. But what happens a lot of times at transform boundaries is there's a lot of friction, which ends up causing earthquakes. So you can see here how the plates are slipping past each other. This is taking place in California at the San Andreas Fault, where these plates are slipping past each other. That's why earthquakes are so common there. So thank you for watching this video about plate boundaries.